Hey guys, my name is Brad of Brave the Woods. Today we're going to be doing a really fun style exploration. We're going to be working in the style of Ukiyo-E Japanese woodblock prints. Now there's a rich history of this beautiful art form that takes a lot of different steps, a lot of different people take part in making these prints happen. But I really want to just focus on the original art and take that and try to replicate that digitally by using my own hometown. So I'm going to depict Seattle, Washington in this style. So that's the challenge I'm giving myself, and I'm looking forward to diving deeper into it. So let's get started. Right off the bat here, I'm messing with the sketch that I really don't need to be messing with, to be honest, but it's really part of my process, and that's why I included it in this video, because as frustrating as it is for myself to keep going over the same thing, it's part of the process for me, and it does take me a long time to get it right, and I feel like it's perfect, and I go over it again, but that process helps me feel more comfortable about the composition and nail it at the very beginning, so those bones are strong, so later on when I'm getting lost in the details, I don't have to be worrying about looking back and going, oh crap, like this composition doesn't work, or I don't want this element in there and I have to substitute it for something else. That's a lot of time wasted, and it's just frustrating for myself, so it stresses me out to even think about it. So I want to make sure it's ready at the very beginning. And I'm not sure if any of you feel that way, but that's definitely how I feel, and that's how my process goes. I chose Seattle as the subject matter mainly because I love Seattle. It's my hometown. There's so much to love about it, but also there is a heavy Japanese influence and population in this city, and I just have really good memories of the Japanese culture there in the city with the food and the markets. I know that there's like little Japanese dollar stores, but the one massive market there, it's an Asian food market, but caters mainly to Japanese food, is called Wajimaya. I'm pretty sure it's Wajimaya. I may be slaughtering that, but those of you in Seattle probably know. If you haven't been there and you're going to go to Seattle, you should check it out. It's awesome. But that's basically where I pulled my inspiration from, and that's why I wanted to do Seattle. But also there's one of the great masters of the Ukiyo-E style, but also really loved doing landscapes, was Hiroshige, and so you'll see a heavy influence from this piece that I'm doing right here with Hiroshige's work, mainly because when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. So he does a lot of Mount Fuji and the ocean and trees, and I was like, oh my gosh, that feels like in my world that is Mount Rainier, Puget Sound, and lots of evergreen trees. So I kind of did my own version of that because it just felt right, and I had a great source of inspiration at that point. I'm kind of making up the angle of this. It's a composite of a lot of different reference imagery, which is kind of funny because I had to kind of recreate. I'm kind of guessing what some of these are real buildings, but they're probably not in that exact order. There's no real shot from right here where I fit in all these elements. So I kind of had to pull from a lot of different images, and then those trees in the front, there's definitely no trees tall enough to stack up that high against the Space Needle. So I had to kind of take some creative liberties and add that in there, but it just felt right for the composition, so we're going to let that slide. All right, I hope you're okay with me giving you a brief history of the Ukiyo-E style, because it was really interesting to me, and I got down this long rabbit hole on the internet looking into it and finding out the process and all that I have to share it with somebody now. There's some really cool things that I picked up and was news to me. And also, if there's any of you out there saying like, oh, this is the first time I've ever even heard or seen this art form, this is most likely incorrect, because I bet you have seen Hokusai's The Great Wave. It's one of the most popular pieces of Japanese art out there, and if you haven't seen this version, the original, then you've probably seen somebody else's remake of it, because everybody remakes this picture. Ukiyo-E is a Japanese style of art that was big in the 17th through the 19th centuries, and some of them were paintings, but the majority of them were woodblock prints. And the process of making these prints is actually kind of interesting too, because I thought that the artist, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought the artist did the carving and the printing and all that. But that's a 4-part process. You have an artist, a carver, a printer, and then a publisher, one who sells the artwork. So I felt that was pretty fascinating, because I kind of assumed they all did it, but I don't think the carvers and the printers get all that much credit, because it's definitely not listed on the artwork itself. It's usually just the publisher's mark and the name of the artist. which is a little bit sad because that's a crazy talent in itself to do the printing and the carving. For the colors, I think I'm going to stick with the more traditional ones. I'm going to pull heavily from my source imagery here because I wanted to feel like it's, of the era, and also, my challenge to myself was to make this feel like it was a Ukiyo-E print, so I don't want to go too crazy and experimental with the colors. The process of adding different colors to the actual printing process of this was kind of crazy and really, detailed and took a lot of time. I mean, each color had to be carved out of its own key block, so basically out of cherry wood, which is a really hard wood. Now, I know this because I do carving myself, and it's very difficult, especially with how thin the lines are, because they're carving around the line work, and for the black lines, they're carving around the lines. They're not carving out the lines, they're carving around all that. And then they have to do this for all the different color areas. So one key block would be, time consuming enough, but think that these prints, some of them were up to around 15 colors, which is crazy because 15 key blocks had to be carved out for one print. For mine, I'm going to stick with somewhat of a limited color palette just to make my own life easier. It's easier to make the colors feel more harmonious and cohesive. And I feel like deciding where to drop in the colors is just an art all in of itself, because these gradients take away that flat feel and give it some really cool depth when these really should look pretty darn flat. I failed to mention this in the very beginning, but I did this all in the Procreate app on the iPad Pro. There's so many reasons to love the Procreate app, but one of the cool functions that it has is that it automatically saves a time-lapse video of everything that you create, so that when you go back to any of your old projects, you can download those videos, which is really, really neat. And then I finished this whole project off in Photoshop, which I usually don't need to do, but I wanted to add a little bit of a few different textures that I didn't feel comfortable necessarily doing in this app at this moment. And then I wanted to do a little bit of lettering on there, so that's how I wrapped this up. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I did. It was hard, but it still was a lot of fun. I thought it was just going to be drawing in some, outlines and then filling it in with gradients, but it was a whole lot more than that. There's a lot more to that style than I had originally anticipated. But it was very eye-opening and a very cool process. So if you like this, if you like these style explorations, or you like just this video, please give it a like below. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll be doing lots more of these types of videos in the future, including this next one if you want to keep watching here in a video here on the screen. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.